Coming into this weekend, the big story was tire wear. Some teams were a little up in arms, Flash Racing and Jeff Sesnick Racing in particular, over the very low tire wear that the National Racing and McAllister Saars were getting. And in order to sort of quell that, the series officials brought in a much harder tire, and not that much harder, but enough to slow the cars down, because after that the big story would be the dramatic increase in speed here. We're going about 40 miles an hour faster than we were last year, and also that's brought in some safety concerns, but the race went on as planned. The qualifying race saw Anthony Evans' Lennard take out the victory, and also some controversy spilling from that after Joel Rodriguez ran Brian Sendak into the wall. Sendak failed to qualify, and Brian Sendak then dismissed Joel Rodriguez's driving abilities and coming into this race. So there was already some bad blood against the number 44 team. Brian Sendak called favoritism, and already that did cast somewhat of a black mark on the beginning of Rodriguez's weekend. Dan, over to you. Thank you, Lance. Round 3 of the TM Master Cup Series saw Leonid Roderick take his second pole in a row. Roderick got off to a great start. Ryan Naraki qualified in the outside pole, and then two of Naraki's teammates, Gary Edwards in the 8, Drew Eisenman in the 31, and then Arto Kekkonen rounded up the top 5 in qualifying. It's been a while since Leonid Roderick has won here in Joliet, seeing as Tony Durbin has all but dominated this track. Joe Rodriguez had a pretty good qualifying run, all the Flash Racing cars inside the top 10. Zelda Ashby in the 55 car is making her first start of the year, and also Anthony Evans in the number 10 car, that black and white car, also making his first start of the year. Alexis Rainsford in car 27 had a pretty poor qualifying run. Rainsford has never really gone well here or at tracks like this, so it was a very disappointing start to the weekend for Alexis, especially when the type of racing here we've seen at Joliet has changed dramatically. Alexis Rainsford's performances here, though, don't seem to be getting much better. Palmer Styles is normally known for his abilities on short tracks. However, he showed that he could run on these 1.5 mile tracks given the right opportunity. Styles normally known for his skills on tracks such as Carbondale, Mansfield, which the Master Cup Series has raced on in the past, or at Southern Illinois. But an unusually good run for Palmer Styles that he would not be objecting to. He currently sits second in the standings. Damian Snyder in car number 11 is known for his abilities on tracks such as this. Snyder, very good run so far for him. National Racing would be very happy about that, seeing as they've been pretty dominant here in the past couple years, and their cars don't seem to have that same dominance they had a couple years ago. First caution on lap 7, and it was a big one. Woody Watts in car number 01 pushes up the racetrack just a little bit, sending himself, James West, and Lauren Roth in a big hit into the wall. At about 206 miles an hour, Woody Watts slams the wall head on. We're not sure about his medical condition. We do hope he's okay. However, the scary hit was James West, because that was a driver's side hit that he took from Roth. We're not too sure about James West's medical condition either, and we do hope both of them are okay. Lauren Roth drove his car to the pit lane and was released from the medical center later on. Stuart Sandoval took the lead from Leonid Roderick on the restart, but that restart only lasted one lap because there was some incident in the back. A long pit stop by Gary Edwards meant he fell off the lead lap and came to take his place to the first car one lap down, and ran into the back of Chris Allen and spun across the front bumper of Joel Rodriguez. A very unusual case of brain fade from Gary Edwards, not what we're used to seeing from him. Here's on board Joel Rodriguez. This took him completely by surprise, as Gary Edwards just spins across his front bumper and he gets hit by the 51 of Bruno Battaglia. Not too many people were happy with Gary Edwards after that. Gary Edwards' teammate, Tony Durbin in the 33 car, has been completely dominant. He's won the past 2 races here at Joliet. And there's another guy who's been pretty good at tracks like this, Lewis Kingston, doing the hometown proud. The Chicago Cup-sponsored entry was the fan favorite here. Julian Asova was in line to finish 3rd here a couple of years ago, but the car blew up with just a couple laps to go, and Asova showing that run was not a fluke, running up there with the leaders. Also, you'll notice Stuart Sandoval in the 77 and Kurt Walker in the 24. Good runs from those two cars. Car number 45 for the rest of the season will be driven by Carlos Donzello after regular driver Todd Stanton was released due to circumstances off the racetrack. The race team apparently was not too happy with something Todd had been doing off track, and they released him from his driving duties. Apparently they picked the right replacement because Donzello came from far back in the pack and was having a fantastic run. Leonid Roderick reassumed control of the race, and it didn't look like anyone was going to have too much of a run for him. Rachel Rains from the 99 also coming towards the front. Joe Rodriguez's 44 car would be involved in caution number 3. Normally, when lapping your teammates, you expect them to move out of the way and let you by. This was certainly not the case. Joel Rodriguez wrecks his teammate Leonid Roderick, his other teammate Arto Kekkonen, and creates a huge pileup. Joseph Howard hammers into Leonid Roderick at about 211 miles an hour, almost full speed. Here's what happens to Howard. He clips the 44 car, the right front goes down, and then he has no choice but to go into Roderick at almost full speed. A very frightening incident, reminiscent of the disastrous weekend here in 2001. Arto Kekkonen also involved in this mess. Kekkonen has no choice to come back down, gets into Marcus Leonard in the 02. Mike Whitmore, Kurt Pliskin, Leon Keniston, Alexis Rainsford gets a piece. Drew Eisenman in the 31. His car is totaled. Or almost totaled. Here's on board Kurt Pliskin's car. Ugh, scary hit for Joseph Howard. We do hope he's okay. Very, very hard hit to car number 17 there. There's Bruno Battaglia getting involved. Alexis Rainsford got some damage. On board Leonid Roderick. Words fail me when I try to describe what has just happened there. Joel Rodriguez comes up and runs into his own teammate, and Joseph Howard. Ugh. Very, very hard hit from Howard. There's Craig Janser in the 5 car. He was also collected in this wreck. We're on board Howard now. He clips a 44 and into the 4! Hard hit, but that's not it. He gets hit a couple times, tossed around by a few other cars with absolutely no place to go. Here's on board Joel Rodriguez's car as long as his camera lasts. He turns Leonid Roderick and himself into the wall. Hits the wall himself. Gets hit onto his roof, and then there goes the camera. Flash Racing, not too happy about this. Another driver that took a huge shunt was Ian Cooper in the 2. Ooh. Not as hard as some of the other hits, but massive hit for Ian Cooper. His teammate Zach Duff stops behind him. No word on how Ian Cooper's doing either, so that's 4 drivers already whose medical conditions we are unsure about. Julian Asova restarted as the race leader with Rachel Rainsford in 2nd. However, some cars further back in the pack, as you see Danny Savin here, were held up by by slower cars that had gotten into the incident, Alexis Rainsford and Gary Edwards. Fortunately, the slower cars were able to move aside eventually, but by then the field had already separated into 2 groups. Danny Savin works on the back bumper of Lewis Kingston there. Here's Drew Eisenman in the 31 car. This is what lapped cars should be doing. Moving out of the way of as many cars as possible. It's impossible to totally move out of the way so that you won't be a nuisance to the pack, but Drew Eisenman obviously trying his hardest to not be a nuisance to everybody. However, on a track like this, that is simply impossible. Fortunately for the fans, though, Rachel Rainsford and Julian Asova were out to put on a good show, and they certainly did so. The battle between cars 99 and 1 was one of the best we've seen here at this track in many years. They traded the lead about 7 or 8 times throughout the course of the next 10 or 15 laps. As you see, Rachel Rainsford determined to keep Asova behind her, and then Julian Asova showed that, well, the female drivers can put on just an exciting show, in fact, even more so, because Asova dove on the inside less than a lap later. Another lead change, Asova in the lead. Very, very good driving from both these two. Julian Asova and Rachel Rainsford showing to the world that they are probably the 2 most underrated drivers in the series right now. Rachel Rainsford wasn't done, though. She made another move around Asova in car number 1. However, all of that race between the 2 cars brought Paul Lyons and the rest of the pack right on their rear bumpers. Lyons, that time by, set fastest lap of the race. Lyons then swept around Julian Asova in car number 1 and looked like he'd be able to sail away from her. However, there's just one problem. Paul Lyons had some other very fast cars to contend with, Anthony Evans in the 10, of course Asova and Rachel Rainsford. Chris Johans, a former Arla champion in the 22, points leader Dale Roswell, something we haven't been saying lately. But Chris Johans, the Arla champion, and Tony Durbin, the former Master Cup champion, would be the cars that would be coming to the front. Johans in the yellow car, Durbin in the 33 car would be contenders, and also Welshman Alan Hodges in car number 13. Don't forget another Arla champion, Kurt Walker. Speaking of Kurt Walker, look at this battle behind him. 3 wide, and they almost wreck it, but Walker gets the move. Ross Peterson shakes his fist at him later on. Peterson not too happy about that move Walker pulled, but other people just told Peterson to stop complaining. The 4th caution flew late in the race on lap number 70, towards the front of the field. Scott Stoyler is going to be involved in this one. Anthony Evans makes a move on the inside of Scott Stoyler, turns the 26 into Danny Savin, sending both those cars pretty hard into the wall. Both drivers got away with it, including Danny Savin, whose car was a pinball, apparently. A lot of hits delivered to Danny Savin. Actually, just one hit, Zelda Ashby being it. At about 180 miles an hour, Ashby had slowed down a bit, and Ashby was able to drive the car back to the pit lane. Went to the infield care center and was released, fortunately. Tony Durbin led on the restart with Chris Johans hot on his heels. We were about to see Tony Durbin versus Chris Johans, the battle of two worlds. The Master Cup Series champion versus the former Arla champion, or rather, the defending Arla champion, as Chris Johans is running both series to defend his Arla championship and go for his first Master Cup title. David Krikorian in car number 9 had made a very quiet run towards the front of the field. Krikorian has not done as well as people may have thought, but he's doing a very good job so far. Been avoiding all the trouble and is marching his way towards the front. Another driver doing so is a driver he's coming upon, Stephanie McGlynn. And also Carlos Donzello, can't say enough about him, actually took the lead at this point in the race. Kurt Walker right on his heels. David Krikorian as well. Todd Wodarczyk, Tony Durbin in this mix as well. However, this is a very volatile mix, and it caused the final yellow with just 2 laps remaining. This is also one of the most controversial yellows of the race. Here we go. David Krikorian in car number 9 is going to be forced to the outside. Todd Wodarczyk goes to the middle. Tony Durbin makes a very ambitious move down the inside. Tony Durbin gets into the back of Wodarczyk, spins him around into David Krikorian, and both cars go into the wall. And Krikorian gets hit once by Sandoval and again by Ross Peterson, but fortunately neither one directly on the driver's door. Both of them hit right where the fuel intake was. David Krikorian very lucky not to have been hit in the driver's door there. Here's a better look at it. Durbin gets into Wodarczyk. Wodarczyk goes up into poor David Krikorian. He gets hit by Stuart Sandoval and by Sandoval's teammate Peterson into the same point on the car. Krikorian gets out of the car unscathed, fortunately. Peterson slows down, just gets him, and then Chris Allen, nowhere to go, runs into the back of the 47 car of Peterson. This means that Kurt Walker in car number 24 won the race, making him only the 3rd person to win in both Arla and the TM Master Cup Series, and he celebrated with victory burnouts, joining Nathan Wilson and Floyd Moss as the only other drivers to win in both series. Walker in first. Carlos Donzello from Brazil steps into the 45 car and nearly wins the race on debut. What a bright future that young man is going to have ahead of him. Tony Durbin in 3rd. Donzello beat Durbin back to the line. Not too many drivers in the paddock thought that what Durbin, the move that Tony Durbin pulled was called for. Paul Lyons in 4th. Chris Johans in 5th. Dale Roswell, very strong run. Dale Roswell is old enough to be many drivers in the field's grandparent. Dale Roswell is the oldest driver in the field by 10 years. He is 61. Alan Hodges is finished 7th. Lewis Kingston in 8th. Great job for the home crowd. Anthony Evans in 9th for his first start of the year. It's hard to imagine that. Anthony Evans would fail to qualify for the first 2 events. And then Julian Asova in 10th. Very strong run by the young Russian driver. And here are the top 10 in points. Dale Roswell showing those young whippersnappers how it's done. Holds on to the points lead, but he doesn't just hold on to it. He extends it 25 points over 2nd place Alan Hodges. Palmer Stiles in 2nd. Tony Durbin, the big gain from this week, jumps 19 spots up to 4th in the standings. Zach Duff in the 28 car. Another underestimated driver on the circuit. Many people didn't think he'd be doing this well so early on. Lewis Kingston, also a big winner this week, jumps 15 spots. Ross Peterson up 3 to 7th. Kurt Pliskin drops to 8th. Stephanie McGlynn up to 9th. And Mike Whitmore drops to 10th. And here's 11 through 20. Scott Bates up to 11th. Much better season than last year for Scott. Chris Johans is in 12th. Arto Kekkonen up to 13th. I should add Chris Johans jumps 18 spots to get up to 12th. Stuart Sandoval sits 14th, former GRL champion. Former NFL player Bruno Battaglia sits 15th. He dropped 10 spots, so Battaglia, one of the big losers this week. Alexis Rainsford stays pretty much where she is. Gary Edwards in 17th. Todd Wodarczyk 18th. James West drops 15 spots, so not a good weekend for him. We do hope James West isn't too badly injured. Ian Cooper, another driver who there is some concern about. He took a pretty hard hit in the lap 28 wreck. Do hope Ian Cooper and James West are okay. We don't yet have a word on Joseph Howard or Woody Watts yet, but we hope all 4 drivers make a speedy recovery and are able to show up to round number 4, which will be in Brands Hatch. That's all for this week in the TM Master Cup Series. I'll see you next time.